Thank you very much for joining me. I'm meteorologist Brian Shields. Of course, a very, very serious situation for the west coast of Florida into central Florida, a high impact event with Milton moving in. We're all thinking of you dealing with this. Now, the west coast of Florida, again, heed any last minute evacuations. If they're telling you to leave, please leave. That is first thing first. Central Florida, category 1 to category 2 impacts overnight. Of course, this thing comes in at night, which always makes it a more scarier, no doubt about that. My friends across Central Florida, for the county by county look, WFTV.com, live streaming. I'll be on there throughout the day. Head to WFTV to give you that very specific coverage because a lot is going on across Central Florida with this. Got you covered with that, but a very high impact event, west coast of Florida and central Florida as this moves in. Hurricane Milton making its move. Now, right now, you can see it, the eye itself a little bit different from earlier. We're starting to get that weakening trend. It's also stretching out. As it weakens some, which is good and expect it, it's actually going to get wider. That is going to increase the wind field on this. Now, here's the forecast map. And if you've been following for several days now, a lot of days, I have barely tweaked this. It has been right on track. I try to be boring in the sense of forecasting where it just stays the same because I just want the accurate information out there. I know there's so much out there about, hey, a shift south, a shift north, and we see that. We saw that with Beryl. We saw that with Helene, Debbie. I try to keep it on track for you best I can, the forecast that is, to give you the proper information so you and your family can prepare accordingly for these events. But this is going to move in overnight, and again, the winds will be howling. It is always scarier when it's dark and the power's out. And know if you're going through this alone, this weather community is thinking of you. So you're not alone. We are with you in this, but I'll be thinking of you, of course, overnight as this moves in. A lot of sounds out there, too, of breaking branches and trees down. This will move in tonight. Winds eventually at landfall. I'll show you that, roughly 125 to maybe 135, and then moving right across central Florida and off the coast. Now, Bermuda, I'm optimistic that, again, we're not going to see a big event moving in with both some of the rain around today and as we see Milton move offshore in the Bahamas. We're going to get some gustier winds, especially tomorrow, but there's no Dorian or anything headed like that to the Bahamas. It's important to let you know where a system is going, but also where it's not going. And yes, this has missed Cuba as expected. So thank you for letting your friends, family in Cuba know that this was not coming to Cuba. Now, the American model has that landfall right around midnight, give or take an hour, with winds around 130 miles per hour right near the Sarasota area. Gust to about 145. The surge is the huge issue, thinking of Tampa Bay. Now, and of course, across the entire west coast of Florida. Now, Tampa Bay itself, I bring that up because this will be one of the closest calls since 1921 in the Tampa area. If this moves right into Tampa Bay, it'll be a surge like we haven't seen in our lifetime. Wherever this moves on shore and just south, that surge is going to be upwards of 15 feet. So Tampa Bay south, monitoring that very carefully. And then the European model, very similar, landfall around midnight, winds around 125. So category 3 or 4 hurricane around midnight, gust to around 140. But the biggest issue where this makes landfall is that surge. Now, looking at the categories, it is decreasing, and we're going to see that. So it should be about a 3 or 4 at landfall. Winds roughly around 130. That's kind of how it's looking at landfall. And then across central Florida as a 1 or even a category 2 hurricane with gusts that will be over 100 miles per hour. That's why I mentioned a very significant event across central Florida. So it's giving you those resources to check WFTV, and I'll be on there to try to help keep folks safe as we go through the storm. And Florida goes through a lot of hurricanes. We'll get through this and kind of get on the other side of it as we do. But as we know and as we've seen the devastation with Helene in Beryl across St. Vincent, the Grenadines and Grenada. These are very, very powerful systems. So the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center, same thing. Now it's going to be a different shape as it gets closer to Bermuda. It's not going to be a super strong system at that point. Just kind of watching it as we get into the weekend, spinning over toward Bermuda. There'll be gusty winds, but Bermuda's like a rock. Bermuda will handle kind of the leftovers of, if you will, of Bermuda, of Milton. But there are tropical storm warnings up for the northern Bahamas as expected, right? I'm watching Freeport over toward New Providence. Heaviest weather is going to stay to the north. There'll be some flooding. The seas are going to be so high. The winds are going to be gusty, but this is not a Dorian for the Bahamas. Now you can see the wind field. It is going to get wider here. Tropical storm winds that are in the orange shading. We saw that moving into the northern sections of the Yucatan Peninsula yesterday and about a night or a couple nights ago. There are the hurricane winds, and all of this headed right up into the central Florida and west coast of Florida area as it makes its move. Why is it turning like that? Well, we've got a front dipping down here that's going to grab it and kind of work its way right into the peninsula of Florida. The surge huge, so watching Tampa Bay, Anna Maria Island, Sarasota for that surge. Where it comes on, in just to the south, that purple shading there, that's where the surge will be about 10 to 15 feet, and that's why you have to be away from that. That's why the emergency officials were letting you know to get away from that. North of there, still looking at about 8 to 12 feet, and you see the surge all across the entire peninsula, even a bit of a surge up toward the Carolinas. Now the Carolinas, that got hit so hard with Helene and Georgia, this is not going to hook its way up like Helene, right? It's not going to go straight up, okay? It is going to work its way across the peninsula of Florida because of the front. This time of year, there are those fall fronts that help kind of steer these things, and you see the computer models all showing that a landfall between Tampa Bay and Fort Myers should be to the north of Fort Myers, and then you see here, no computer models are bringing this or hanging this out in the Bahamas. It'll be very close, but as a much diminished system in just a few days as we get into the weekend over to Bermuda. So trying to cover everyone with this. Now we get a look at the winds. We're going to see that decrease, of course, because there's going to be some wind shear, which I'll show you. And then, of course, the interaction with LAM, which does help weaken it. And then it should be a tropical storm deeper into tomorrow and through the weekend, as it is very close to Bermuda by the time we get into the second half of the weekend. So here it is. I want to show you the American model. This is the American model. Then I'll show you the European model and the winds with this. The core of this starting to work in, especially later in the day. A big area of tropical storm winds, a large area as well of hurricane winds. So 5 o'clock, really bad conditions, and then right overnight by midnight, it should be making landfall right near Sarasota. As it does, the heaviest weather with this, all hurricanes are different, heaviest weather is going to be north of the center, right through central Florida. In a dry pocket moves in across the southern parts of that. So you see a lot of the rain displaced to the north. And in that rain, the hurricane gusts, the hurricane winds, and the gusts that will be 90 to 100, which could also be higher across parts of central Florida. And then the system works off kind of a broad tropical storm as we work our way into Thursday and Friday as it kind of marches. It gets tied into a front and makes its way over toward Bermuda. So let's expand that out. You see here by Friday, it's right here. Here's Bermuda, but it is definitely not looking like it is today, right? It's going to be in different form as it works its way toward Bermuda. So this is our Friday afternoon. And then pulling forward, it's just going to be wet and some gustier winds as we work our way into the weekend with this. And this, by the way, this is Leslie. I'll show you the path on that in just a second. But again, that is all going to kind of sweep away. But there's Bermuda as we work our way into Saturday. That higher chance of rain could get some gustier winds. Same thing as we work our way into Sunday. Still kind of fine tuning that, but I'm not seeing anything crazy significant for Bermuda down the road. And then that, which I'll get to in just a minute, a buildup of rain near Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. I want to show you that in a minute, where it could be the next name system, and the next name on the list is Nadine. Now, as far as the winds go, in this red and yellow shading here, this is really the hurricane winds right in this, working their way into Florida as we get into later today, tonight, and the first half of tomorrow. And then as it moves across, it really broadens out. It loses some of its core of winds. You see this white shading in here, 50 mile per hour winds or 80 kilometers an hour. And you see still some of the yellows, which are 70 miles per hour. So it could still be a hurricane offshore on Friday, but you see how large of an area of wind it is. That means really elevated seas, the surge in coastal flooding from parts of the Carolinas, Georgia, all the way down the east coast of Florida and in the Bahamas. We are going to get those tropical storm force winds, nothing we can't handle. Again, not getting a hurricane in the Bahamas, which is good, but the winds will be strong. So keep me posted in the comments. Just northern Bahamas. We had over 700 islands in the Bahamas. Northern Bahamas, watching out for some of those tropical storm winds right in here. But you see as it gets toward Bermuda as we work our way into the weekend, how it is more of a diminished system. Still some gusty winds at times, depending on either Saturday or Sunday, depending on how this kind of works its way through Bermuda. So again, not seeing much on that, or seeing gusty winds, but nothing too crazy. But let me swing down the road here as we work our way into the Caribbean. So here's Belize, here's Jamaica, Cayman Islands right here. Look at this. As we get deeper into next week, you see this kind of little spin down here? This is the area that could be our next named system. So just looking ahead, and I mentioned this days ago, the next real hot spot to watch after Milton will be the Western Caribbean. We're not definitely going to see a storm for us near Jamaica or Honduras, but that is an area that could flare up. That is an area we could see some development. I'll show you that as I zoom down in a second. If you want to look ahead, just hang on. I'll show you that in a second. Here's the European model, and you see it in here, very much like the American model, Category 3 or Category 4 making landfall. Here's that little spot that almost looks like a named system near Bermuda right now. That was that batch out ahead of it. It's almost like some tropical storm conditions nearby Bermuda for today. Not sure if they're going to name that or not, but that is there, but not anything super strong. But with a front here, the flow is just kind of driving everything this way. I like to show you kind of why things go in a certain direction and not another direction. So the European model, similar to what we were seeing with the American model, heaviest weather in Florida, parts of Florida, working its way into later today, tonight, and at least the first half of tomorrow. This here is by the time we get into tomorrow offshore. Some of the models still have it a hurricane sitting offshore and just to the north of the Bahamas. That's why I mentioned our northern Bahamas islands are going to get some tropical storm winds, and with the higher seas and that flow coming onshore, there is going to be flooding. We'll get some of that coastal overwash, no doubt, with those higher seas. And then even some of those feeder bands, some of the rain we get in Jamaica tomorrow, some of that is some of the scattered rain, not a big rain event, but some of the scattered rain, those big feeder bands working through the Caribbean. And then you see this here as we go out in time. This is deeper into Friday. The European model wants to hang this together a little bit more. Here's Bermuda right there. And you can see this here, but here are the Bahamas. So pulling away from the Bahamas and pulling away from the Carolinas, but a big broad wind maker as we work our way into our Friday. And then eventually this area will work its way closer to Bermuda. You see it here, but there should be a weakening trend on that. Yes, some gusty winds down the road taking you out in time here. This is by Saturday. So here's Bermuda right in here, and you can see some of the gustier winds that will be possible with the European model. The European model also showing a buildup late next week of that rain in the Western Caribbean. Now, still some very warm water. While there is a little weakening trend, and we'll see that with Milton, water temperature is very warm, 86, 87 degrees Fahrenheit. That's why it's able to kind of hold its own. That's one of the reasons it's been so strong. Why is it weakening though some? Because as expected, as it's lifted up to the north, this is later today, it's encountering the wind shear. Those are winds above our heads that kind of knock off some of the developing thunderstorms within the hurricane. So it makes sense we're getting some weakening as it lifts to the north, but as it does, it kind of changes the shape and it kind of broadens it out and it makes it a bigger wind field. And you see those seas, they are going to be very high. Here's, to say the least, incredibly high. Here's meters, here's feet on the right-hand side of your screen. Super dangerous, and that all the added waves, but the surge is the big thing. But these are the wave heights in flipping over near the northern Bahamas, southeast U.S. by tomorrow. Incredibly dangerous seas. We're going to have that coastal overwash, so there's going to be coastal flooding, especially significant on the east coast of Florida, even as we work our way into Friday, because it's just a huge wind maker that is going to sit out there, right? Different form. Super strong over here. Then on the flip side, a very broad system. Either way, we're going to have some of those big problems. It's going to be very interesting to see how it just kind of changes shape, but that also means different threats that we're watching as this system evolves. So Leslie is out there. Milton, of course, that is the one we're watching. The next name on the list is Nadine. Here's Leslie, and that is all on track. May strengthen again a little bit as a hurricane and then kind of kick its way and eventually weaken as it hooks away. But here we are in the Caribbean watching scattered showers and storms. Here's Cuba. There is Milton. There's been some tornado warnings already earlier in parts of South Florida with this. And you see some of the rain bands here. It's amazing how the weather's tied together regionally and globally. You see some of the scattered showers and storms kind of feeding into this. Trinidad and Tobago, we could get a couple showers today, and this is where I want to start to look ahead. Spotty showers tomorrow, better chance in Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, where we could get some areas of flooding tomorrow. And this here is as we work our way into our Friday, same thing. And then Trinidad, we're still going to stay active with scattered areas of rain and storms. But as we look down the road, I'm just going to jump ahead here, right, into the weekend and then into next week. We're going to start to see the rain building here. So starting this weekend, but really as we get into next week, this will be the next area to just watch for development, and at the least we're going to be watching out for some pockets of flooding depending on where some of this rain sets up. But you see, as we get deeper into the week, a big surge of moisture in here. This is by the 15th, so on Tuesday, lots of rain in here, and I'll be watching to see if anything does try to develop into a tropical depression or a tropical storm, and eventually potentially a hurricane. Not that we're going to get that, but that is the next area to watch, so giving you the heads up. Of course, this is off my chart, the coloring, where Milton goes. 8 to about 14 inches of rain, a very significant rain event. Not only a wind event, a surge event, but a very significant rain event as we swing around and we get back through Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Haiti, Dominican Republic, passing shower storm. So 25 millimeters to about an inch of rain. If you happen to see a passing shower, here we are, Antigua, Barbuda, swinging back toward Anguilla. But Trinidad and Tobago, I mentioned, a little more active the next few days. We could get some spots of 75 millimeters of rain or about 3 inches of rain. Also watching out for some rain in parts of Guyana, even Suriname, northern sections in northeastern Venezuela. But Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama, some areas of flooding. A lot of moisture around in the environment. So watching out for 150 millimeters of rain or 6 inches of rain for 3-day totals. Please be mindful of the dangerous river crossings, and some mudslides will be a potential. Mexico City north, though, we're generally on the dry side all the way up through Texas. So Jamaica, 40 to 50% chance of scattered showers and storms. 40% chance in the Cayman Islands today, then just a 20% chance tomorrow. But Trinidad and Tobago, as I mentioned, active at times, scattered showers and storms, and we could get a few pockets of flooding. Barbados, rain chance will be a little bit higher by Friday. Just isolated though, St. Lucia, 20 to 30% chance, about a 50% chance in Grenada the next 3 days, a 40% chance St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Rain chance isolated in Martinique, about a 30% chance, and generally the same thing in Dominica, only a 20% chance. Northeastern Caribbean, we are going to be drier. You see that from Guadeloupe, and you even see that as we get toward Antigua, Barbuda. Rain chance 40% today, but a 20% chance for tomorrow. Generally dry tomorrow and Friday, St. Kitts and Nevis and Montserrat, and the rain chance stays very small. Anguilla and St. Bart's. That also means we're going to be on the hot side. St. Martin, Saba, and Statia, rain chance stays limited. A 20 to 30% chance of an isolated shower or storm in Puerto Rico the next couple of days. Not a lot. U.S. and British Virgin Islands. Rain chance about 30 to 40% in the Bahamas as a whole. Of course, watching out for some tropical storm conditions, winds, and watching out for the higher seas. Let me know in the comments what you're getting across the northern Bahamas. 20% chance though, Turks and Caicos. Still, the seas are going to be really elevated. Dominican Republic, isolated shower storm. Not a lot as we work our way into Haiti, mainly dry and on the hot side. Rain chance is limited across Belize, Hopkins, Ladyville. That rain chance stays low. Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire, only about a 10-20% chance of a shower. A little bit higher by Friday as we work our way toward Curacao and Bonaire. But you see northern Guyana, in northern Suriname, that's where we'll see that rain chance ticking up as we go over the next few days. So better chance of rain, 50% chance tomorrow, northern sections of Suriname. Isolated shower storm in Cuba. And then you see that rain chance on the elevated side, Costa Rica, Panama, which I was highlighting. On the elevated side, back through Nicaragua, where we could get some of that flooding. And the rain chance will pick up Honduras, especially inland, Thursday and Friday. Rain chance holding at about a 50% chance, Guatemala and El Salvador. And as we work our way back through Mexico City, drier conditions have really moved in. Rain chance across the Yucatan Peninsula, 20 to 30%. In northern Colombia, 40 to 50% chance. About a 30 to 40% chance in northern Venezuela. And as we swing back toward Bermuda, we have that system nearby today. And then we'll be watching late this week, just kind of seeing more rain on Friday and what's left over of Milton nearby as we get into the weekend. So the major hurricane, that landfall will be soon as we get into tonight, either just before or after midnight, overnight. Very scary situation, of course, with that massive storm surge that will roll in. Where the center is, in just south, a 10 to 15 foot storm surge, and then watching that new area in the building in the Western Caribbean. I'll monitor that for any signs of development. So we are thinking of you if you are dealing with Milton. This weather community is kind of watching this all together, and I'll be trying to get to those comments throughout the day. Keep me posted wherever you are and what's going on with the weather and maybe what's not going on, and I'll try to get to those comments throughout the day. But please be safe with Hurricane Milton, and thank you for being part of this channel.